both experience that when we take responsibility in any area in our lives, it gives us freedom.
When I realized that the only thing I can do is take care of me, or not in a selfish way, but how can I react differently to this? That's freedom, because you can only control yourself. You can't control other people.
We can say that responsibility is action. So when we do actions with awareness, then we open up for more choices. And that will give, and that's the sense of responsibility. Welcome to our podcast. You want to do a short introduction, Pernilla, for people who are joining us for the first time?
This is like my least favorite part of the podcast, because I feel so sort of serious when I have to go, hi, I'm Pernilla. But okay, so my name is Pernilla Burke. I'm the founder of Awakening 101, which is a spiritual online resource. It's like a library. You find information about sages and books, and there's certain things that I've created, like the Awakening Process Mandala, which has an outline of like tools and elements that are spiritual aspects of how we sort of move forward on our process. Check it out, Awakening Process on Awakening 101, and look at the mandala. And then there's also personal blogs. And the blogs and the mandala, the tools and the elements, are really why we're here, me and Louise, because Louise, my best friend, said to me, how do we get people to understand what the hell you're talking about? Or how do we get this out there? And Louise suggested, let's make a podcast. And we have, and this is recording number, I think like 23 or something. What we're doing here is talking about aspects of spiritual transformation, healing that have occurred in our life. And we're bringing it here into conversation so that it's easier to grasp.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Okay, fabulous.
Thank you so much, Pernilla. And as Pernilla said, I'm Louise. I'm Pernilla's best friend. We've been knowing each other since the age of 4. But I want to just fill into the Awakening 101 and the mandala and the tools and the elements that you have created. I think that we wanted to, when Pernilla showed me her work of the website, which I think is, it's such a gift, and I think everybody can tap in to any kind of layers into this website and find something that might resonate with you. But the whole process of the podcast, I think also is that when we want to be more present in our life, the only way to be more present is to awake, right? And the tools that you have created, or the mandala that you had created, really helps us to find different ways of how to be more present. And both me and Pernilla, and now I just talk mainly more for myself, but I always heard be present, but it was difficult for me to what do you mean being present? And I think that when Pernilla showed the mandala, there were things I could draw out or pick up that really helped me to stop up and embrace those in my life so I become more present.
Yeah, so thank you for bringing that up. I love that you see it that way. But I guess that's exactly the right thing. And I have such trouble like formulating words on my own, but the way Louise describes it, it's like the tools and the elements of Awakening 101 are there so that you can, so like if somebody says, this is an example, be present. Most people, including myself up until like maybe a year ago, would be like, what the hell does that mean? Right? Like what does that mean? And so what we're trying to do is say, okay, so these are the tools that you might help you. What are the steps before this presence that you're talking about? So we know, Louise and I have talked that extensively about that here. We know that a walk on the beach or watching a sunset, for example, will make you more present. So what we're trying to do here is say, hey, why don't you try this, breathing through your nose? And then the result will be awakeness, connectedness, presence. So that's what the tools are. The elements are presence, awareness, love, forgiveness. So I loved how you said that, because that's, it took me a long time too to sort of figure, like, how do I do this?
Mm.
And then you come to, like, through all the work, you could go, oh, this is what I need to do. I do this. I go to the beach or whatever it is. So thank you.
Well,
And
thank you. And
yeah.
just one more thing that I want to add to what I think the tools and you gave me is that it's one thing to be present in my mind, but if I don't embody it in my body, I don't experience it. You know what I mean? It could be like you just said, oh, just try to be present. Well, I
That
am
doesn't mean
present. I'm here,
anything.
I'm
Yeah.
here right now, and well, I see you, but I need to integrate it. I need to embrace it with my body, be with the sensations in my body, and then I become present.
Yeah. Yeah.
And going from that present moment, I would like to introduce us to today's topic.
Yes. But before we do that, we're going to meditate.
Wonderful. I love it.
So I've been doing this 21-day meditation at the back of Sally Kempton's book, like this whole fall, basically. And she uses various meditation techniques. And this is going to tie into our theme today, but I'll get there after. So there's one meditation that I've been doing that really is beautiful. And I'm going to just tell you quickly what it is before we start. So basically you have a mantra. And if you don't have a mantra when you're doing this, you can use the word love or peace or whatever resonates with your heart, not with your mind. And this mantra, you will breathe it in to your heart chakra. So it's almost like you imagine like the breath being brought in horizontally with the mantra into your heart chakra, which is, again, it's in the middle of the chest to the right of your physical heart. And you almost imagine that it's like energy that comes in through the heart and through and out. And then you exhale and it's coming back through the heart to the front. Inhale through the heart, through your body into the back. So this is how you visualize this in your mind. Your mantra is breathing horizontally back and forth. The intention of doing that is to tenderize your heart. And what I've noticed that I've been doing this, like my focus throughout the day, which is what Sally always talks about, like meditation is something that you do, but then you bring with you this energy of meditation throughout your day. And what I've noticed is, like, when I do this meditation technique, it brings in a softness and an awareness in my physical heart chakra that sort of like brings in a warm blanket throughout the day, because then my focus, because I've been focusing on my heart chakra, stays there when I'm out and about and driving around and going to the grocery store. So, okay, you close your eyes and we begin by feeling the bottom of our seat. As it touches the chair, just to bring in the sensation of grounding ourselves. And then we can slowly move to the sensation of the breath entering the nostrils. And just in this very short time, these two simple actions, feeling the bottom of our seat, breathing through our nose, we're already entering the present moment. We're going to bring our attention down towards the heart chakra. Just breathing into the middle of our chest without strain. It's like a loving, massaging breath, nurturing ourselves as we breathe. And then we're going to bring to our attention our mantra. Again, you can use love, peace, or the mantra that you use. Breathing. And then slowly we begin to imagine that we're bringing or breathing in the mantra into the heart chakra, through the heart and towards the back. Exhaling. Through the heart, back into the front of the body. Breathing in the mantra through the heart chakra, into the back. Exhaling to the front. We're going to do this silently for about 3 breaths. Keep the focus on the heart chakra and your mantra. Breathing in, breathing out. In, out. I'm going to ask you to fold your hands, Louise. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank
And
you.
open your
Namaste.
eyes.
Thank you so much, Pernilla.
Yeah, so Sally talks about this thing called bhavana, like the feeling that you put into your meditation or your day. Like, this is like sort of your attitude. And I feel like when you do something like this, your attitude shifts because you all of a sudden you're moving away. And it leaves quite an imprint. You should think about this today and report back to me how you feel. And, also in the podcast, it's a good place to come from the heart, right? When we're talking, it's not from the mind, we're talking from the heart. So now we can start.
Well, I think it's wonderful, and it resonates so much with my Buddhist practice that where it says that the heart is the most important, and arriving in the heart space, there is completely pure, and the heart never lies. So I think it's and when we have dialogues heart to heart, there is a different intention with our dialogue than we just think in our mind.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, thank
There's
you
no
so much,
ego.
Pernilla.
There's no ego here.
No,
There's no agenda.
it's just pure energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's very nice. So thank
Now
you
we're
so
like,
much.
let's go back to
Yeah,
meditating. Thank you very much.
let's we should just stay meditating, and we love meditation.
Yeah, it's the
And
best.
you are a wonderful guide, Pernilla. So that was really nice. Well, we hope everybody enjoyed it. I think going from the meditation, which is one way of take responsibility for being in the present moment, and
Yeah.
also for handling, also to act out from the present moment. And you said also there is no ego. Um, there, it's just more space. And
Yeah.
today's theme is responsibility is freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And before we tap into that topic, I had a little play in my mind before we started this podcast. And that was everything that starts in the spiritual journey, or things that can be useful tools for us that started with RE, like
R-E?
responsibility, responsibility,
Yeah.
relationship,
Mm-hmm.
recharge,
Oh, yeah.
renew,
Yeah. That's so funny.
refresh. There was so many RE
R.
coming up,
Yeah.
and
R-E.
I just, and when I thought it was coming back, now going back to the heart,
Mm-hmm.
because that's where it starts.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can tap back to that later on. So without being too back and forth here.
Yeah.
But when I say responsibility is freedom, what do you think about that, Pernilla?
Oh, wow. So, oh God. Okay. It's such a big question. But I think that if I would wanted to try to answer it in a short-ish, uh, responsibility comes from the day you understand that we are only in charge of ourselves. And with that, when you really deeply, fully understand that I can only take care of my own side of the street, as we say in AA, or I can only change or control or whatever you want to say, or surrender to my own actions. That is the piece of freedom that we're talking about. So I have an example. When I had my last day of using, so on July 23rd, 1998, I had made an appointment with this shaman in New York, because I was into spiritual stuff, even though I was partying every night and doing a ton of drugs. And my friend was like, "You can't go out tonight if you're going to go see the shaman because you're going to miss the appointment." And I'm like, "What? No, this is like so important to me. Of course I'll just have one drink and then I'll come home and I'll see the shaman tomorrow." Anyway, long story short, I never made it to shaman. I was out for 24 hours doing drugs. And the appointment was at 3, and I got home at 5 p.m. from my friend's house. So I never called her. I never said, "Can we reschedule?" I just didn't show up. Right. And this inaction for me to like, because even though I was a mess, I still was sort of responsible for like calling and, apologizing, all that stuff. Right. But the fact that I didn't show up, I mean, even if I had a reschedule, I would have lied about why. Like I would have called and be like, I broke my arm and I can't make it today, something like that. I would lie. So I didn't show up. And the fact that I missed the appointment really shook me to the core. Like, I mean, this is one of the reasons why I never used again, because I figured like, this is such an important thing. Like, why couldn't I do this? But the next day what I had called the AA number, like the things were in motion and people were with me who were sober that were trying to help me. But I called the shaman the next day and I said, I'm sorry, I fucked up. And she was a shaman. I mean, she probably had predicted this already, that this was going to go down this way. Because she was like she was really intense, this lady. And she was like, okay. And and she didn't even say anything. But the fact that I said, without lying, I fucked up, was a beginning, like was one of the first moments where it was freedom, because I had then been honest with her that I was a fuck up. I was honest. And that was freedom.
Mm.
So just as like there's like those moments, but that was like the first day of the beginning of my sobriety. And then there was many things that happened after that. But that, it's like when I understand, when I come clean about my participation in life, and when I stop thinking about changing you, my husband, my mom, my kids, when I realize that the only thing I can do is take care of me, or not in a selfish way, but how can I react differently to this? That's freedom, because you can only control yourself. You can't control other people. So does that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I have similar experience also from becoming clean and being sober. Yeah. But back to, we can say that responsibility is action.
Definitely.
So we can't.
You take an action, I think, from going back to saying that it's me. And that's also liberating, because when you're trying to, the problem is that we all try to blame everybody else, right? And then we try to change people, but we have no control in that. So it's like it's an inaction, because we're just sort of like obsessing about what everybody else should do. So yeah, it's an action. It's a good point.
I think also that when I became sober and went into NA, then I was working in the steps, and I think it was on the third or maybe the fourth step where I heard this, like, you need to take action, and when you take the responsibility, you will create freedom. And it was simply going back to, when I take the responsibility of not using, I'm not depending on anything. And I get that.
Yeah, because that's
freedom.
The first part. Yeah, it's freedom.
So
yeah, it's a prison, right? Drug addiction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's also a prison if you let other people rule you, or being in control over you, or you feel that they are in control of you.
Yeah, and which they're not. It's your choice.
Which they're not, exactly. Yeah. And a lot of people think that, oh, it's your fault. But when we take the responsibility and turn it inside and say, okay, interesting, why am I reacting, and what do I need to do to change this and respond in a more constructive way? And that's where the freedom comes.
Yeah. And, I think that's been like an obsession of mine, to figure out why I react in a certain way. Like, why am I triggered by this thing? And I thought about this a lot yesterday when I was thinking about this. It's like, ever since the beginning of my marriage, has been how I operate. Like anytime I find myself being irritated or annoyed with my husband, I mean, even at the very beginning, which is kind of a miracle, but then I go, okay, why is this irritating? Like, what is it within me that feels triggered by this? And it's all, I mean, for me, I love him, so it's easier, right? So it's like, okay, well then if he's acting in a certain way, I always try to think about, what's going on with the other person, finding a place of compassion for them, you know, and then coming back. And that gives me responsibility too, because if I can develop a sense of compassion for them, I can do that for myself. Like, I'm allowed to feel this way, but, you know, surrendering to also feeling triggered or irritated. But usually when you dig back into that, you find the reasoning behind it, and you can let that go.
But it sounds easy when you say so. And I think and I think after all the therapy we've all been doing, you and me, I think I'm also pretty good at that. And that's also why I can probably cope with so many things. But I experience also from one of my children, but also a lot from my surrounding, and even from one really good friend just 2 days ago, saying that you do this, I expected this from you. And I say, this is not about me. Try to turn this inside and see what is going on within you. But it's so easy to fall in to put the responsibility over to the other person.
Yeah.
Instead of owning it.
Yeah. But now you're actually talking about somebody else, right? So
No,
your
I'm
responsibility, you're talking
it's
about
my
you, or you're talking?
No, I'm
Yeah.
talking about me. I'm pretty good of doing this. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's why
So, I
but I
mean,
experience a lot of people around me are very good of projecting it out and see others. Like I would say, oh, that's your fault, Pernilla.
yeah. So your responsibility, Louise,
It's to
is
bring
to
it back to myself.
yes, to accept that most people won't,
No.
right? And the thing that I also discovered through my work with this is that, okay, you know, I'm making my husband an example, but the fact that I over and over and over and over, always, not always, you know, hey, I have bad days too. I'm yelling at everybody, but over and over claimed my own responsibility and took that action. Over time, that allowed him to have the space to do the same thing. So, like, if you have a friend, for example, and she's, you know, blaming you or saying it's your fault and blah, 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 you know, the only thing you can do is actually look at your own, like, how did I affect whatever happened here? You can't, and didn't fully surrender the fact that she's doing what she's doing. That's nothing. Like, for us to go around and wonder why there's nobody else claiming responsibility is a complete waste of time and not responsible, right? And I've thought about this too, like in the last week since we started talking about it. It's very interesting. It's like, that's like double responsibility when we really fully accept that. So yeah, there's a lot of people that are not taking care of their side of the street or taking any action on their part. But our responsibility, me, Pernilla, and Louise, is to be surrender to that and say, okay, well, I'm still going to look at my side.
Yeah, and why? And now you said, well, there's a lot of people, and I also mentioned with some of my close surrounding that are very good at pointing out. But that's why we brought up this topic, because we both experience that when we take responsibility in any area in our lives, it gives us freedom in any area. And I remember Holly came home and said she didn't want to go to school because she had this conflict with one of the girls. And I said, if you don't go to school, you let her control your life. That's not freedom. You want to take your responsibility. You want to stand up for you, and you want to, you know, keep this side of the street clean. And then when you have that, because there is a power in taking responsibility too. I think a lot of people might think, oh, responsibility is just going to drain me down. It's just going to, you know, oh, it's too much responsibility, too many decisions. But
yeah, I mean, I guess it's a definition of responsibility too, you know, like understanding what it really means.
yeah, exactly. And I mean that if we really do understand the effect, it's a little bit cause and an effect. Like if you really understand how it make you feel when you take responsibility. It's
Mhm.
really to set yourself free.
Yeah. I mean, it's like another example, right? I remember in early sobriety when my finances were always a mess up until then. I didn't really, I just, I remember living in New York and like being scared of like the blinking light on the answering machine because it's probably like the electricity company turning off my electricity. So we never listened to it because we're like, because I always thought that whatever call it was the phone company or the electricity company turning off. But I remember when I started working and I made a budget, I made a list of, phone bill, electricity, what do I spend on groceries, my yoga, like those were the things I paid for back then, and seeing the number, even though the number might have been too much and I'm like, oh, scared now, but at least knowing exactly what it is. Because I think that people, especially with finances, you just get overwhelmed and you just don't want to know, and it feels but I feel like even if it is out of control, knowing exactly what it is gives you freedom because then you can make choices. I mean, I spent like 2 hours last night going through every expense we have for the last 2 months, and I like doing it, because
And how did you feel afterwards when you had done that?
No, but I mean, I've done that for the last 20 years now. Like, I mean, my husband thinks I'm crazy, but I like knowing exactly the number of what you spend and what's coming in, and bills paid always on time if I can. Like back in 20 years ago, I couldn't always pay it on time because I didn't have any money. But at least calling and like making sure. So, and that's also freedom. Just having the space to move forward. And again, it's only your responsibility. There's nobody else's. So,
but for me, it's also like you get a little bit of lightness, right? It's like you're taking a burden off because you have the courage and the willingness to take responsibility. You look into it. I mean, it must be your relationship to money or finance, your relationship to other people, your relationship to yourself. I mean, we take responsibility when we participate in a yoga class or when we do meditate. That's a way of nurturing ourselves. As you said, when you look into the finance, and it took me a little bit more than my path, but yeah.
What is your path, Louise? Tell us.
No, but I'm like the person Pernilla just mentioned. I rather not look at it because I know it gives me stress, and I feel anxious, and
looking at it or finding the answers.
Both of it, I think. But last week I did take responsibility for it, and I did take responsibility in it. I remember you told me one day, you said you need to put the emotions away, and you need to look at it and be a little bit rational. And that's what I try to. And I put it up and say, okay, it's just numbers, but I need to look at them and I need to understand the numbers without becoming half panic and stop breathing and feel like, okay, I'm gonna end in the drain.
Yeah,
But
you're gonna be sleeping on the streets.
yeah, and I think it was a really, really nice feeling afterwards when I had looked into it and I got to understand you for the first time, that you always said you enjoyed it. And I said, I did enjoy it because I took
of the
the
lightness.
Yeah.
But also because of the lightness.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people try not to. It's a pain, money. It's a big area for people.
But it's your foundation. I mean, it does. It helps. Let us put it that way.
Yeah. And it's also hard to understand. I remember, like, when I graduated from college, like I got somebody like on the street outside our building in New York. They were like, "Oh, here's a credit card," and I'm like, "Oh, great!" They're like, "Credit limit $1,000," and I'm like, "Great!" And I went out and I spent it all. I didn't understand what a credit limit, like a credit card, how it worked. And then I had that debt for years because I didn't know how to pay it off, and the interest rate went up, and it was just like, oh my God. But I was thinking about when you were talking, this responsibility, the theme of responsibility is in so many areas. And you actually said it really well when you're like, it's the relationship to money, it's the relationship to my partner or my mother or my children, it's the relationship to myself that we have to be responsible for. And I was thinking about what you said to Holly, right, about going to school. So you're, and I'm challenging you now, but I want you to think about this. You're telling her to be responsible, right?
No, I tell her to take responsibility.
Yeah.
And not being overruled by someone else.
Yes, but what I'm saying is responsibility has to do with yourself, right, Louise? So in this case, how do we show how to be responsible rather than tell our kids how to do it?
But that's a very good question.
Yeah, and I actually don't know the answer, but
no, but I think
about this.
Yeah, but what I think with holidays, I brought up an example. Example with myself, saying that I had a person that I was a little bit scared of in school, and that you. Pernilla was one of the hip ones, and I was
scary. Yeah.
Oh, no, God. But it was one of my brother's friends.
Of course, yeah. Okay.
And I remember that every time in school, I kind of looked to navigate. Okay, they there, I'm not going there. Okay, but I'm thirsty. Yeah, but the machine to the water is there. Well, then I stay thirsty. And I said to Holly, when you and of course I was controlled by fear. I was afraid. So it was,
of course,
and that's with Holly too. She's afraid of this girl in school. But I try to come with an example that when you can stand strong in yourself and say, okay, I have also the right to be here. I don't need to change my, I don't need to change the side of the street when this person is coming. Then it gives you, that's a way of taking responsibility for your own life. And then of course you don't have to be, you should not be stupid, because if you walk in a dark street in the middle of the night.
So I guess what I'm saying, again, how do you, as a parent, or as a friend, how do I see to it that, or how can I influence Holly to feel strong enough to not change side of the street? So what we're saying here is that you're telling her, this is what I did, my brother's friend, if you cross the street, you should be strong enough. You should be strong enough. But what I'm asking is, how can you find a place within yourself? How can I strengthen her strength?
But that's a great question. That is a great question.
I think that's, and so coming back to that, like, that's what I'm saying. So this is what we're talking about, like the responsibility in our, as mothers or friends or partners, is not instructing. Of course, she's your child, so you teach them, right? You're like, this is something you should try. This is what I tried. And, it's different, right? But what I'm saying is, like, how do you take a step back where she actually, how can you find a place within her, and you know her so well, where she can tap into her strength, herself, and be like, I'm not changing the side of the street when I see this person.
what I think this is so interesting, and I don't think it's any right and wrong.
No, it's just something to think about.
Definitely, but it's probably
Yeah.
many rights, because what comes up when you say so, and we're not going to dig into that, but of course, if you have a very strong self-esteem, I don't think you be ruled so much about the fear, because you're resting in yourself.
But how do you build self-esteem?
Yeah, but I think that's a good question. I think that some people are born with a good self-esteem, and some people have definitely no self-esteem. I had no self-esteem, because I think a person who has good self-esteem would not hurt themselves. They would not have the addicted behavior like you and I.
No.
Like if you get drunk once and throw up, you realize that's not really good for me. But we just think it's going to be different the next time, and then we use a little bit more other things, and in the end of the day. But back to that with Holly. Holly came back the other day and said, listen, this girl pretend that this never happens between us. And I also pretend now of letting go of it. So our relationship is more neutral again.
That's pretty wise.
They're pretty wise, but that was not Holly wanted that. Because it was the other girl who pretended nothing ever happened. I don't know.
Yeah, but at least it's easier for Holly to be in school.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what you just said about how do we get Holly to understand how she can take responsibility and what that will give her in the end. And I think it's very, very difficult. But what just came up in my mind while talking is we can't tell someone,
No.
don't change the street, because if she feels more comfortable about changing the street, then that's her freedom. So responsibility must be actions that you do for yourself that make you feel good.
Yeah.
In the end of the day.
So in her case, right, maybe the responsibility is taking the choice that she wants in the situations that arrive at school with her. And from making choices, so understanding how to empower as a parent or a friend, your responsibility, Louise, is to allow for her to make a decision what she needs to do. And then through your own actions and your own examples, maybe with your brother's friend, which is completely valid to give examples, for her to have insights and inklings like, oh, my mom tried this. Whatever I decide, like I know you, Holly, you're going to make the right decision. That increases her self-esteem. So it's this fine line, I think, when we're dealing with our relationships. How do you be responsible and allow them space for their own responsibility? She's gone silent. Louise, are you there?
Now I just thought of my own experience the other day of taking responsibility to look into my finance.
Yeah.
And it gave me a good self-esteem.
Yeah.
But then it's also a thin line between good self-esteem and being self-centered.
Yeah, but we can. That's another. And let's just take small steps here.
Yeah, let's take.
Because now we've already, because we meditated and babbled, it's already been an hour. So I don't know.
I know. So we need to. Well, I think we should wrap this up. Responsibility is freedom. What will you say, Pernilla?
Yeah, and I think the responsibility, now that we've had this conversation, I feel like it leads to a stronger sense of self. If I can take responsibility from me,
stronger self of sense. Now say it again.
Stronger sense of self. Like my self-confidence gets boosted if I love it. Stronger sense of self. Yeah. I mean, don't you agree? Like you feel more self-confident because you went online and tried to figure out finances last week, and maybe if Holly makes a decision to cross the street, that will make her, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it
No,
is
but
stay on the same street, say the street as this girl, or cross the street. Whatever that is, she made that decision, and it's going to make her feel more self-confident, I think.
so
Let's
just
hope so.
wrapping this up, because what you're saying there is we need to be aware. We need to be awake.
Yeah.
Because when we
Yeah.
do actions with awareness, then we
Mhm.
open up for more choices. And that
Yeah.
will gives, and that's a sense of responsibility,
Yeah. I mean, all tied together.
all tied together. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
But all we want is the strongest sense of self.
Yeah, but I mean, it's also like, I don't think, like, when you say want, right? That word creates a distance between,
Okay, yeah.
you know what I'm saying? So it's like, we do these things, and whatever shows up, shows up.
Mhm.
It's non-attached to outcome. We fully surrender to whatever choice we make,
Mm.
and whatever happens is also
Mm.
something we fully surrender to.
So we
See you later.
surrender. See you later, alligator. Thank you so much, honey. This was beautiful. I'm blown away. I need to recover for another 15
Yeah.
minutes now.
Okay, baby.
Okay,
I
loves
love
you.
you.
Thank you so much.